This Sunday on Capital Connection, a gas giveaway shows just how badly consumers want relief from pain at the pump.
Everybody wants this free gas.
House Democrat Mike Halpin responds to the economic pressures that face this election year, and Republicans ramp up their argument, their case against Governor Pritzker's administration.
There's been just a string of broken promises.
House Republican Deanne Mazzocchi joins us, and
the public tends to want to know what you're doing now.
Can politicians look past the short-term threat to their own career in this year's election to tackle long-term issues plaguing Illinois? House Democrat Mark Walker discusses that. It's all coming up on Capital Connection.
From the Illinois State Capitol Rotunda, Capitol Bureau Chief Mark Maxwell is asking the tough questions. This is Capital Connection.
Welcome to Capital Connection. I'm Mark Maxwell reporting from the Illinois State House on this Sunday, March 20th. The pain at the pump continues to give politicians heartburn in this election year. Look no further than California, where lawmakers there are looking to give voters a $400 rebate to offset some of that rising expense, that pain they're feeling as they refuel their gas tanks. And in Chicago, cars lining up around the block at 10 different gas stations on Thursday morning as former Chicago mayoral candidate Willie Wilson offered $2 million in free gas. That alone, that option to fill up your tank for free, showing just how desperately people want a little bit of relief at the gas pump.
It's going to be real hectic because it's going to be probably from here to Indiana in a minute. Because the gas, because everybody wants this free gas.
I'm hoping it go orderly. People is struggling. When I see this and I see all the other areas around here, it just tells me I gotta dig in my pocket more.
I ain't getting my gas. They said it was too many people, man. I want my gas.
We're trying to get them in easily. It's a little bit difficult because, everyone wanted to get their free gas, and that's great. And we want to do our part, make sure everyone gets in and out as easily as possible.
People needed help.
Joining us now is House Democrat Mike Halpin from Rock Island near the Quad Cities. Good to have you with us. What can Democrats do to address that cost of inflation, the economic pain that businesses, that people are feeling right now in this election year? Is Governor Pritzker's tax freeze going to be really enough to sell that message?
For me, it's not about selling a message, but it's actually providing relief. We are in the fortunate situation where we appear to have a larger surplus in the budget than we expected last year. I think it's only right and just to give some of that back in payments to people, give property tax relief, with gas tax, grocery tax relief, just to help that a little bit.
Illinois taxes gas in a way that a lot of states don't. We have the motor fuel tax, which goes right into that lockbox, that goes to roads and bridges. There's also a sales tax. Some people don't differentiate on top of that. Both of those numbers are up because of all the expenses of gas are up, and people are getting back to driving like they did not in 2020. Some business groups have looked at that sales tax side. They've said there's 700 or 800 million, 900 million extra there. Could that money go into the unemployment insurance trust fund? Is that a possible solution that you see?
Well, using that money is certainly something that we can do. Now, whether it goes to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund or directly back to people in the form of a property tax rebate or some other rebate or tax credit, I think that's something that we need to talk about. But I think it definitely makes sense to return some of that to the people given the difficult situation they're in.
One of the big things that has been creating tension in the supply chain, in the economy, has just been that we don't make a lot of things here. We often rely on this global economy to make things in other countries where there's cheaper labor and they ship them here, and then we have products that we can assemble here or elsewhere and buy them that way. But I believe you've been looking at some solutions to bring some of those jobs here. Is that the idea?
It is, and I've been advocating for a long time that we should not be offshoring jobs. Even if there are lower labor costs. We need to make things here in the United States, we need to make things here in Illinois. And so as we've seen the pandemic create these stresses and cracks in the global supply chain, I've got a bill that would incentivize manufacturers to make microchips, semiconductors, other component parts right here in Illinois, given our, the advantages that we have here in the state.
Well, some critics look at that as a tax giveaway.
Well,
they say at a time when there's record corporate profits, highest corporate profits we've seen since 1950. What is the state government doing? Handing out tax dollars to lucrative companies.
I tend to agree with you in a lot of these cases, but I also live in the reality where we have to compete with states like Ohio and Indiana, and until we can convince either the federal government or our sister states to stop that race to the bottom, we need to provide what we can to good Illinois companies that want to expand their operations here and good folks that want to bring their operations here.
Are there companies now in Illinois that are doing that are making microchips, that are making these semiconductors?
As far as the actual chip manufacturers, I'm not aware of any large companies. We do have some suppliers, I believe, that might stand to benefit if there's additional domestic production. Those suppliers would have an ability to expand, and we want to make sure they try to expand here.
So you bring the manufacturing next to the supplier, and all of a sudden they have sort of a dynamic effect?
Absolutely. Lowers transportation costs. They get to share in the good energy prices we have here in the state.
Who are the big fish out there, the companies you hope to lure to Illinois?
Well, in talking to the Manufacturers Association, they don't have any specific company, but there's really only about 6 to 8 major players, including the bigger computer companies like Intel, Dell, things like that.
There are, you might have heard, this is an election year, there are 5 Republicans that we know that are running for governor. A couple of them say they're big business folks and that they can do a better job in reversing what they say is a bad business climate in Illinois. There are some business groups that echo those claims and say this is an environment that doesn't grow jobs well.
I think they're just flat wrong. There was an article not too long ago I saw in our Quad City Regional Business Review that shows Illinois as one of the top locations for corporate expansion. I think it was 3rd in the nation, but behind maybe Texas and Ohio, I think, with Chicago being very highly rated. And I think those parties have a vested interest in trying to make Illinois look as bad so that they can come in and try to, quote, fix it. Illinois is a great place to live, it's a great place to work, it's a great place to do business.
There are ebbs and flows. There were periods of time just recently where Illinois job growth or job recovery was outpacing parts of the country. That's taken a downturn. Just this week, the jobs numbers show that across the country, unemployment claims are dropping, and the continued claims, which means the people that stayed in the unemployment line, is the lowest level since the 1970s. But in Illinois, those numbers shot up a bit this week. Yeah. Any read on what's causing that in Illinois right now?
I don't. I saw some of the numbers. I don't know if there's a specific issue that's come up or with a specific industry. I'm certainly going to be looking at that more, especially over the next couple of weeks, to see if it's a trend or just an aberration.
Very interesting. Also, Governor Pritzker and his administration are taking some arrows, some fire from their political opponents for much of the pandemic. A lot of that noise has quieted off since the cases and the hospitalizations and the pandemic restrictions. Those masks and all those other things have also faded.
Sure.
You were the Democrat who sat on J-Car, the first one who voiced, I don't know, was it opposition or reluctance to continue the governor's mask mandate in schools? That was the moment that the governor's executive powers really ran out because the courts pointed back to J-Car and said, this doesn't. What were you hoping to do in that moment? What was your goal?
So J-Car is it's a committee about rules. It's about administration. It's not glamorous. It's not political. It's not policy based.
It speaks for the legislature, though.
But what we were faced with, we were asked to adopt a rule that the only court, as I said in the committee, the only court that had made a ruling on it had said it was not a valid rule, and so we felt on J-Car that we couldn't then approve a rule that the only court had said was not valid.
You felt that the lower court had sort of forced your hand, that unless the legislature had rewritten a new law, you couldn't really go around that.
Well, not forced our hand. Obviously, we want these things to work their way through the court system. But as of that day, that was the only court case that we had on the issue.
And then it went up to the appellate court. They said, we're not going to continue this mask rule because of J-Car and vacating the rule basically, or suspending it essentially. The Supreme Court then struck down the lowest court's
correct
a temporary restraining order, which that lower court never actually completed the full legal argument, right? Didn't actually
correct.
Rule on the issue. It just said, while we get ready to rule on the issue, let's temporarily restrain the practice of masking. So
that's right.
If our viewers are still following along with that convoluted explanation, is it your belief that Governor Pritzker still today has the valid executive authority to reissue a new mask mandate in schools if cases start to climb again?
I think that's probably right, given that there is no legal precedent now on it. With the temporary restraining order not there, I believe that's still an issue that's going to be resolved by the courts.
So the courts could still one day, step in.
I believe so, yeah.
All right, you come from one of the most beautiful corners of our state. There are many, nestled away, sometimes away from the bigger cities and the population centers, but Illinois is home to a lot of really great scenes and sites. But you had an interesting idea I saw recently that you want to have a state park, but not funded by the state.
Yeah,
Is this
so-
privatizing our
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's actually not my idea. It's an
Okay.
idea of a local gentleman by the name of Chad Pedracky, who was also involved in Living Lands and Waters across the country. And we've got an interstate bridge, I-80, that needs to be replaced. And
Okay.
IDOT is already planning on replacing it. But he has talked with some consultants and some nature preserve folks. And we want to create a reserve for bison, American bison, that would span both sides of the river, Illinois and Iowa, and use that bridge as like a wildlife passage with bike path, pedestrian path, some event space to get people back to nature. And the best part of it is that it saves the state money from not having to destroy the existing interstate bridge, and it'd be entirely privately run, unless, of course, the federal government wants to make it a national park of some kind.
So you can go to this place, Bison Bridge in the area, and see
Yep.
American bison.
Not now.
But you could.
If
Are they migrating eastward?
So they would bring in bison from the country. They're not. I mean, they're natural to the area, of course, but they're not migrating themselves.
Okay.
So this would be something that we would develop and allow people to visit.
And you need a state law to greenlight it.
Well, really, what we need is for IDOT to consider a new alignment. They want to build a new bridge. We just want to make sure that they're considering an alignment that allows the old structure to stay in place, the existing I-80 bridge, and then allow that private foundation to then develop on that bridge, take it over without cost to the state, and create this preserve.
That's the perk.
That's
that
the
there's
plan.
no
Yep.
extra cost to the state. But what happened to this land is your land, this land is my land? Now it's this land is your land.
Well, yeah, so it ends up being put to the preserve. Otherwise the bridge gets destroyed anyway. And so the land is already, there is no land because the bridge is
So there's a
is
preservation
destroyed.
aspect to all.
Correct. Yeah.
What kind of reception are you getting on this idea?
It is incredibly popular back in not just the Quad Cities community, but we have supporters from across the state and actually across the country. And we'll be excited to participate in public hearings with IDOT as the process continues.
All right, as we head into campaign season, election year in 2022, Governor Pritzker on the ballot. What is the slogan, the message, the thing that voters will take away about Democrats? Why should they be elected in 2022? That slogan would be what?
I think the slogan, frankly, is fiscal responsibility. We came 4 years ago from a place where we had just barely passed a budget over Governor Rauner's objection, and we got to a point where we have wide surpluses, and we're in a position where we've been responsible with the state's funds.
Some people wanted you to run for Congress.
I think that's true.
I happen to know it's true. Why didn't you?
I've got a very young family, and at least here in Springfield, I have to spend a lot of time away from them, but I can get home in my car anytime I want. Going out to DC is a different transition. I wasn't ready to put my family through that.
Some people might also look at the political wins and say that corner of the state is tilting a little bit more red these days.
I don't think that's the case.
You don't?
I think Democrats have a really good shot still in that district. There are a lot of really hardworking people there that understand our Democratic message, and which helps lift people up, all people up.
Do you have a candidate in the primary that you like?
I don't. I'm so as chair of the county party, can't make endorsements, and so I've been staying out of the race, just making sure everyone is being as friendly as possible.
Representative, we open doors and see if you'll walk through them. In this case, he declined. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mark.
When we come back, how Republicans in the statehouse are ramping up and organizing, orchestrating their PR campaign, trying to make the case that Governor Pritzker has failed his oversight of several state agencies. House Republican Deanna Mazzocchi joins us next.